British monkey, Davy Jones, has returned to his home country and to the theatre. Michael Nesmith runs the highly successful Pacific Arts Corporation in California, a company that creates and produces videos, many of which feature his own music and his own acting talents. I'm afraid I don't know what happened to Pete Talk. And Micky Dolenz, who played drums for the group and sang lead on many of their biggest hits, such as I'm a Believer and Last Train to Clarksville, is now based in London, where he's chief of his own production company. And after much success in the television field, he's now venturing into theatre production for the first time. Here he is, Michael Dolenz.
Look at the new suit. I have a new suit. I just want to see what it is. Honey, I think we should take it in.
Hasn't been ironed yet, has it?
No, that's the new look. Crumple.
Listen, it must probably bug you always hearing about the Monkees, but at the same time, they were actually quite an important part of pop history.
No, it doesn't bug me at all. Absolutely not. I'm very, very proud of it.
In that case, whatever happened to Peter Talk?
He's living in Los Angeles, actually, and he has a rock and roll group, a new rock and roll group that he's putting together. I love it. That was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. Because, in fact, you all surprised us by being actually very talented, and
well, it probably wasn't in the script.
Say that on the...
I always think that, you know, perhaps the guys who put you together wanted people who weren't actually all that good, so they could control it.
No, quite the contrary. They wanted personalities that each had a strength and a character of his own, because television needs that. They attempted to cast, they didn't attempt, but they looked at groups that already existed. I won't mention them, but there was a number of famous groups at the time that existed, and they looked at them, and they were great musicians, and they were great, you know, personalities of their own right as a group, but they looked the same and they act a bit the same, because groups are like that. They get along well, and so they tend to have a kind of unified thought, and they wanted something that was very visual, that was counterbalances and contradictions, and so they cast two actors, basically, and two musicians.
Which were you?
Neither, no. I was the actor. I was one of the actors. I was cast to play the part of a drummer.
Did you know you could write songs there? Because you actually wrote some of their hits, didn't you?
I did, actually, yes, but only by default. I mean, I don't fancy myself a writer. I did, sitting in hotel rooms when there was nothing else to do. I wrote, the only big hit I had, I wrote here in England when I was over here and I met the Beatles, and it inspired me to write a song called Randy Scousket, which I had heard it on that show, was that, you know, To Death Do Us Part. You know,
yes.
I don't remember the names of the characters, but the old guy calls the...
Alf,
yes, of course. He says, "You Randy Scousket," and I thought, oh, what a funny little name. Isn't that cute? So I named the song that, and I went back to Los Angeles, and I said, I've written this song. They loved it, and I said, I want to release it in London, and they said, you can't, not with that title. I said, why? And they explained to me kind of what it meant, and they said, you need an alternative title, and that's what I named it, Alternative Title.
Oh, right, yes, it was called...
Alternate Title.
Alternate Title. When the Monkees finally packed up, was it a very down period for you? Was it hard to recover from such success?
Yes, a bit, but I was prepared. I'd done a series when I was very young.
A Circus Boy?
Called Circus Boy. That wasn't the first thing I'd done. Some of my prenatal work is some of my best, I think. So I was kind of prepared in a funny way. I didn't know it at the time.
Right.
But I guess I expected the downslide of the roller coaster, and so I lived through it. Some didn't.
So you'd had one career at 10-ish, and then another career at 20, and now one at 30.
Well, more like 40. Thanks. There's a bald spot starting out.
Join the club. How did you, in fact, get from being an ex-monkey in America to being a successful producer in England?
In 30 words or less. I started directing on the Monkees, and at that point, I think I realized that that's where the power was. And after being in the business for, at that time, 25 years, that's a long time to be in any business, and things start getting old, and the entertaining part of it was getting a bit old for me, and that was very exciting, directing and writing and starting to produce. And so I started to develop my career in those areas. I came to London, actually, as an actor, because I was back and forth a bit, acting, directing, acting, to do a play called The Point at the Mermaid Theatre. And an agent heard I was in town, that I was a director, sent me to the BBC, as a matter of fact. And I directed I was offered a drama at the BBC, a premiere, the BBC Two series called Premiere. my agent fell off the chair, and I said I had to cancel my plane reservations. I mean, it was just like that.
Gosh.
And I'm still here because the extradition notice hasn't come through.
Do you miss America?
No, not at all. It's funny that everybody asks me that, and I don't at all. I just love it over here, quaint little, all them funny little brick buildings.
But wouldn't most film directors give their IT-30 to work in California? Yet here you are, somebody from California flying back.
No, it's not in television, certainly. I mean, films, yes, a lot of films are done there, but look at the films that are being done here. The television industry over here is still a one-man show. You know, there's still a place for the one man and his vision, his idea, especially at the BBC. When I worked here, I couldn't believe it. They basically said, here's the money, go do it. And, I mean, in the States, they have these, you know, the network committee meetings that decide, well, I don't like the gray. Can we make that a bit lighter? And no, I don't like the cut of the collar. I mean, it's incredible that, in all fairness, they have to appeal to 280 million people, you know, and much more money's involved and things like that. But it's more than that. There's still the feeling over here that entertainment and show business is not a committee business. You know?
Now, in fact, your next big project is theatre, and it's Bugsy Malone, and it's a musical with 10,000 kids were auditioned.
Yes, it's amazing. Yeah.
And how many did you have to choose?
Well, we chose 140 for the first 4 casts, but we need another 140 in 6 months.
When you say 4 casts, why is that?
Well, every 40 to 80 days, depending on their age, we have to change the cast entirely.
So you're...
It's a nightmare. I mean, it's, you know...
Why are you doing it?
Because I'm crazy. I just thought it was a lovely idea. I hadn't done a lot of theater. And I told, when I was trying to get the idea off the ground a couple of years ago, I was telling people, and they said, what a great idea, you're nuts. You'll never do it. But I feel a bit like the story about the bumblebee that doesn't know it can't fly.
Right.
And so I'm doing it anyway.
And it's basically the same score as the successful Bugsy Malone movie.
Yeah, and the same script, basically.
Right.
I mean, I adapted the movie into the stage play, so there are differences in techniques and stuff like that. I reckon the toughest thing is going to be to live up to all this publicity. You know, it becomes a problem. So just don't expect too much. Okay? Just come in, nice little evening, you know, a few little kids running around. Not very good.
How long have you got before you go to rehearsal?
About a week.
So you've got 4 lots of 48 kids, all...
Not the first. Fortunately, I rehearsed the first cast for like 4 weeks or so, and then we have to start the second cast even before we open.
Gee. Do you think the laws are actually...
Any hints?
No, not at all. Not at all. I avoid kids and dogs.
I got both. Yes.
Do you think that the laws are actually right? I mean, is it correct that they should protect children this way from being exploited, or are they a bit archaic? Do you think children, if they're great...
Yes, well, no, I do think there, of course, should be laws to protect against exploiting a child. It so happens that the laws are, I think, not archaic, but they just seem a bit imbalanced. A child of 10 to 13, 14 can work in a factory for much longer, a much longer day, officially, than they can work on stage. They only work for 2 hours. But I don't complain. I mean, I think that somebody must protect the children. I think that ultimately it's the responsibility of the parents. But I'm afraid most parents either don't know how to take on that responsibility or don't bother. But that's a problem throughout the society, isn't it?
Well, I sincerely hope Bugsy Malone works, because we desperately need musicals which actually get on, I think, let alone run.
Yes.
So I wish you all the luck in the world with it.
Thank you very much.
May you follow up your TV success with theater success.
Thank you very much.
Michael Dolenz.